Thank you, sir. Admiral, again, thank you for your service. If you looked out over a 10-year window and sequestration was fully implemented, we'd have 232 ships left in the Navy. A decade from now, is that a wise thing?
Not a wise thing.
It would severely restrict our ability to deal with threats that you face today in your backyard. Do you agree with that?
Unless you put them all in my AOR, I'd probably be okay if you put them all there.
But somebody else wouldn't be.
But somebody else wouldn't be.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
Yes, sir.
Now, what percentage of North Korea's GDP is dependent on a relationship with China?
I don't have that at my fingertips, but I imagine a fair percentage, and I can get you a number. Okay,
I'd appreciate that. The point I'm trying to make is that basically North Korea is a client state of China, and they could stop this if they chose to, in my view. We're ready for the fight with North Korea if that day ever comes?
We're ready.
South Korea and Japan, do they believe we have their back?
In my sessions with my counterparts, the answer to that is yes.
The politics in South Korea has changed, would you agree, where the tolerance by the South Korean government and people to accept any more attacks against South Korean interest is much lower than it was 2 years ago? Do you agree with that?
I would agree that their toleration of a significant provocation towards the South is much lower than it has been in the past.
If there were a incident where a South Korean naval vessel was sunk by North Korea, a South Korean island was shelled where South Korean citizens were killed, or a South Korean plane was shot down by the North Koreans, it would be almost impossible for the South Koreans not to respond in some fashion. Do you agree with that?
Well, you'd have to ask to get a real answer to the South Koreans, but my sense is, and I think General Thurman would probably agree, is that there is a growing sense in South Korea that future provocations of the level you just described would require them to respond in some way.
From our own national security interest, a nuclear-armed North Korea sharing technology with terrorist groups is a real concern. Do you agree with that?
One of the greatest concerns.
And we should be concerned about a missile attack coming from North Korea, and I applaud the administration for showing resolve. I think all the things you have done under Secretary Hagel's direction have been good, the right signal to send, but it is more than just getting hit by a North Korean missile that I'm concerned about. A North Korea with a advanced nuclear weapons program is probably a nightmare for this country because they have shown a propensity to share the technology with terrorist groups. Is that a fair statement?
Fair statement.
Do the North Koreans have a rational bone in their body?
I would say that over time that you could, if you look at, the armistice was in place the year before I was born. So over time, they're still in power. And so there must have been some rationality from their perspective of what they're doing.
And I think from their perspective, this is rational. A few live like kings and most people are starving to death. And when you get to the bottom of the North Korean problem, you have to go back to China, in my view, because this North Korean regime could not last 6 months under a current construct without support from China. Do you agree with that?
I believe that North Korea is highly dependent on China for a lot of its resources. I don't know how long they would survive, but
not long. Do you agree that China must have a plan for propping up this crazy regime?
Well, I don't know that
they're not doing it by accident. They know who they're giving the money to, right?
They do, and it's a long term.
What is their plan? I mean, tell me the best you can. You're one of our eyes and ears in that part of the world. As briefly as possible, tell me, why does China continue to do this? How does this fit into their plan for the planet?
Well, I would say that speculating on my perspective of China's position on it is that over the last...
Have you ever asked them?
We've talked about about the situation on the peninsula when I have
you ever asked
counterpart
him,
visits.
why do you support this crazy guy? Why y'all do this? I mean, what's in it for you?
Well, my sense is that over time that they've developed this relationship with North Korea as a buffer to U.S. presence in South Korea on the peninsula.
Well, don't you think it's a little deeper than that, that they worry about a unified Korea, another democracy in their backyard?
I don't know that I would agree that they're, you'd have to ask them, but I don't know that I would agree that they're worried about a democracy. They have a pretty vibrant relationship with South Korea, actually a strategic relationship economically. So
you think North Korea is a buffer?
Yeah, my sense is that they may.
Why do they engage in cyber attacks against American business interest?
They do that so that they can get technological advantage.
Why do they object to efforts to control the slaughter in Syria?
I don't have a comment on that.
Why do they not support us more in terms of controlling the Ayatollahs in Iran?
I couldn't comment.
Well, I'll give you a comment. I think this is a communist dictatorship that fears individual expression. They fear freedom of thought. They fear freedom of religion. They fear anything not controlled by the state. And it is now time to deal with these people more directly. Do you consider China a friend or a foe?
I consider them at this point in time in the terms of those two terms, neither.
Well, with friends like this, do you agree we don't need many enemies?
I consider them at this point in time someone we have to develop a strategic partnership with to manage competition between two world powers.
I'll be a little more direct. I know you're a military officer, and I appreciate your service. Their behavior is not only provocative, it's obscene. They're stealing American intellectual property. They're attacking us every day through cyberspace. They're propping up one of the most dangerous regimes in the world that directly threaten our interest. They're one of the groups having Assad's back, one of the last real vicious people on the planet. Not one of the last, but certainly one of the major. So you live in a tough neighborhood, and I just wish you would share with the Chinese that there's a growing frustration here in Congress with the way they behave, and we would like to have a more mature China as part of the international community, a China that would bring out the best in the world, not reinforce what's dangerous about it. I think I'm speaking for a lot of Republicans and Democrats. Thank you for your service.